Good morning, Mom. Good morning, classmates. Today, our topic is all about organization of materials. Organization of materials management is aimed at planning the materials requirements for the production of goods and services. The organization structure should be such that the materials can be managed efficiently and its flow, storage, and use can be controlled effectively. Materials management is not just limited to organizing materials, but also managing the inventory and forecast activity, assessing the value, conservation, and protection of inventories in hand and in process. The organization of materials management ensures efficient integration of activities related to materials and the regulation of their use as per the production requirements to maintain stability in the department. There should be harmonious structure growth and authority within the organization's hierarchical system and integrated decision making. This helps in achieving the goals of the organization by way of proper information supply system. So, this is the one of the examples of organization of materials. And next is cataloging and classification. Cataloging is a process of adding an item to a catalog, a process typically including bibliographic description, subject analysis, and classification. Cataloging has a rich history of practice which can provide valuable lessons for many of today's information workers, from metadata specialists to reference librarian. A basic understanding of cataloging is highly beneficial for library employees, library users wishing to improve their catalog searching skills, and anybody interested in metadata. Cataloging is an essential task in library science. A cataloger organizes the material within a library. In modern times, into an computerized database that function as the library catalog. Put simply, catalogers create a record for each items that describes subject, author, title, and many other identifying information. They then classify the item by adding a call number to it, which helps both patrons and staff to find the items on the shelves in its respective subject area. And this one is one of the examples of an old card catalog, a handwritten subject card from the National Library of Medicine's old card catalog recalls the pre-computer days when information had to be created, classified, and sorted by hand. According to Charles Amy Cotter, 1937 to 1903, a prominent American librarian stated that the purpose of a catalog was number one, to enable the reason to find a book when either of the following is known: the author, the title, the subject. Number two, to show what the library has by a given author on a given subject in a given kind of literature. Number three, to assist in the choice of a book as to the edition, bibliographically, as to each character, it's either literary or topical. Basically, while Cotter's statement is still valid today, in the modern context, the purpose and scope of cataloging goes beyond this. From the point of the user, the purposes of cataloging of information in general, including resources for libraries, galleries, museums, and archives, or find to search for resources, identify to confirm that a, a resources corresponds the one sought, and select to choose a form of the resources, obtain to gain access to the resources, explore to discover resources and to gain insight into the variety of resources available that meet the need or criteria. And this is one of the sample of the catalog. And next, a very large number of elements or attributes of books could be collected as metadata. The usual metadata attributes for a book would be title, author, publisher, publication date, ISBN, index words, subject, and any other relevant information that readers may need to locate the book. In addition, there would be metadata collected which would meet the administrative needs of the library. For example, the cost of the book, whom it was bought from, and where the funds came from. If the publication details are important, then edition, publishing house, whether it was part of a series, date of original publication, original publisher, so on and so forth. Maintaining the metadata of the collection of information resources held in a library or any other institution is a basic task of cataloging. It is vital that the metadata must be complete, accurate, and informative. And this is the metadata examples. The next is the bibliographic control, provides the philosophical basis of cataloging, defining the rules for sufficiently describing information resources to enable users to find and select the most appropriate resources. A cataloger is an individual responsible for the processes of description, subject analysis, classification, and authority control of library materials. Catalogers serve as the foundation of all library service, as they are the ones who organize information in such a way as to make it easily accessible. And next is the types of cataloging. This is descriptive cataloging and subjective cataloging. Descriptive cataloging, the makeup of an information resources and identifies those entities responsible for its intellectual and or artistic contents without reference to its classification by subject or to the assignment of subject headings, both of which are the province of subject cataloging according to Chaudhry et al. 2015. And the second types of cataloging is subjective cataloging. The second major component of library cataloging entails two key activities. It is conceptual analysis, is the process of determining subject matter of resources. The translation is the process of transforming the information regarding what a resource is about into terms chosen from strictly controlled lists. Subject cataloging may take the form of classification or subject indexing. Classification involves the assignment of a given document to a class in a classification system, such as Dewey Decimal Classification or the Library of Congress subject headings. Indexing is the assignment of characterizing levels to the documents represented in a record. And the next is the cataloging standards. One of the cataloging standards are Anglo-American cataloging standards. The English-speaking libraries have shared cataloging standards since the early 1800s. The first such standard is attributed to Anthony Panezi, the keeper of the printed books of the British Museum Library. And the next is the England. The Bodleian Library at Oxford University developed its cataloging code in 1674. The code emphasized authorship, and books by the same author were listed together in the catalog. And next is Germany and Prussia. The Prussian government set standards rules called Prussian instructions for all of its libraries and in 1899. Next is cataloging codes. Cataloging codes prescribe which information about a bibliographic item is included in the entry and how this information is presented for the user. It may also aid to sort the entries in printing the catalog. Next is digital formats. Most libraries currently use the MARC standards, first piloted from January 1966 to June 1968 to encode and transport bibliographic data. And the last is transliteration. Library items that are written in a foreign script are, in some cases, translate, transliterated to the script of a catalog. In the United States and some other countries, catalogers typically use the ELA/LC romanization tablets for this work. And next is a library classification is a system of knowledge organization by which library resources are arranged systematically. Library classification are a notational system that represents the order of topics and the classification and allows items to be stored in that order. Library classification systems group related materials together, typically arranged as a hierarchical tree structure. A different kind of classification system called a faceted classification system is also widely used, which allows the assignment of multiple classifications to an object, enabling the classifications to be ordered in many ways. And there are many standard systems of library classification in use, and many more have been proposed over the years. However, in general, classification system can be divided into three types depending on how they are used. And number one is universal schemes. Covers all subject, example the Dewey Decimal Classification, Universal Decimal Classification, UDC, Library of Congress Classification, LCC, in colon classification, CC. And number two is specific schemes. Covers particular subject or types of materials. Examples: Iconoclast, the art; British Catalogue of Music classification; and Dickinson classification, the music; or the NLM classification, or medicine. Number three is national schemes, specially created for certain countries. Examples: the Swedish Library Classification System, or SAB. And the next is Dewey Decimal Classification. The decimal classification introduced the concepts of relative location and relative index. Libraries previously had given books permanent shelf locations that were related to the order of acquisition rather than topic. The classification's notation makes use of three-digit numbers for main classes, which fractional decimal allowing expansion for further details. Numbers are flexible to the degree that they can be expanded in linear fashion to cover spatial aspects of general subjects. A library assigns a classification number that unambiguously locates a particular volume in a position relative to other books in the library on the basis of its subject. The number makes it possible to find any book and to return it to its proper place on the library shelves. The classification system is used in 200,000 libraries in at least 135 countries. And the next is the Library of Congress Classification, LCC, is a system of library classification developed by the Library of Congress in the United States, which can be used for shelving books in a library. It is used by most research and academic libraries in the US and several other countries. And next is the colon classification, or CC, is a library classification system developed by Shyali Ramamrita Ranganathan. It was an early phased classification system. The first edition of colon classification was published in 1933, followed by six more editions. It is especially used in libraries in India. Its name orga- originates from the originate from its use of colons to separate facets into classes. Many other classification schemes, some of which are unrelated, also use colons and other punctuation to perform various functions. Originally, CC used only the colon as a separator, but since the second edition, CC uses for other punctuation symbols to identify each facet type. And the next is the Universal Decimal Classification, or UDC, is a bibliographic and library classification representing the systematic arrangement of all branches of human knowledge organized as a coherent system in which knowledge fields are related and interlinked. The the Universal Decimal Classification, or UDC, is an analytico-synthetic and facet classification system featuring detailed vocabulary and syntax that enables powerful content indexing and information retrieval in large collections. Since 1991, the UDC has been owned and managed by the UDC Consortium, a nonprofit international association of publishers with headquarters in The Hague, Netherlands. And the next is references. And that's all. Thank you for listening.